Hey everybody, Jared here with CasualCrusader.com. Today I'm joined by my good friend Michael, who is a longtime Magic player. And over the last couple of weeks, I'm sure you guys have already seen it, there's been a ton of Eldritch Moon spoilers and previews. As of Friday, I think that was the 7th, Wizards of the Coast has unveiled the whole set. It's pretty awesome, so we're going to go through and evaluate some of these cards with you guys. So you'll be ready for your pre-release. I know I'm looking forward to mine. We're going to take this in order by color, so today we're just going to be doing white. Make sure you check back on CasualCrusader.com as well as our YouTube account so you don't miss a thing. Alright, let's dig in. First card, we've got Blessed Alliance, costs 2. It's an instant, and we've got a new mechanic, Escalate, which lets us choose one or more mode out of 3. So it's a pretty good option. We got a lot of flexibility with that card. What do you think, Mike?
I think it works well. Like each effect is good by itself. Mostly you're gonna draft this or play this for the tapping effect, but it just all upside from there. Especially with a colorless Escalate, not like any kind of color requirements.
What I like about this card is the bottom ability, actually. Target player sacrifices an attacking creature. Recently, I can't remember what set it was in, but we had Celestial Purge, which saw a fair amount of play in Standard. That was actually double white, and you only got that one effect. So this is a little bit easier to cast, and if you want to, if you have the extra mana, you get some other options with it. So I think forcing your opponent to sacrifice a creature as well as gaining that 4 extra life is going to be really good against aggressive decks.
Yeah, this card just gets better with more mana and more time on the field. It's good early on, it's good late. Always draft it high.
Draft it high, and I'm assuming you're going to play this in sealed if you open one for your pre-release?
Always.
Our next card is Borrowed Grace, another Escalate card. Common this time, and I can't say I'm a huge fan of this one. We've seen a very similar card in Fortify. Fortify was basically the same effect without Escalate, so you could only choose one mode or the other. With this one, you can choose both, but it's going to cost you 5 to give your creatures +2/+2. Do you think that's worth it?
Yes, that it's an instant, so it's a combat trick. White seems to have a lot of combat tricks so far, and there's going to be some mucked up board states. That's how zombies played last time. It's kind of how werewolves played last time. Werewolves had their own, combat tricks as well in like Moon Mist. So this is White's version. You're gonna play this as a 5 mana 2/2 blowout, and that's how you're gonna win these games.
I can see a couple of decks if you end up playing Spirit Tokens liking this a lot.
Yes, definitely.
Our next card, and our first rare in white, is Bruna the Fading Light. When Bruna enters the battlefield, when you cast her, not when she enters the battlefield, when you cast her, you can get a target angel or human creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. She has Vigilance and Haste. She's a 5/7, but she costs 7. What are your thoughts?
They're trying to steal this from Yu-Gi-Oh! And I don't know if it's going to work out too well.
My thoughts, I'm not sure how good Meld is going to be, especially when you're going to need both rares to do it, so I don't see it happening very often at all in sealed for your pre-release, very rarely for drafts as well. What I think you might be able to do is play this in standard as maybe a 2/0. 7 is a lot, but the fact that she gets an angel back from the graveyard means you could potentially get her mate Gisela back with her and have the meld available at the end of the turn. But that being said, 7 is just a whole lot no matter what format you're playing.
Right, but 7, it's not unheard of that this is gonna really help you. We're going to see some other cards that are high cost and that will get you back into the game and really push you far ahead. And I think, once we figure out what the format's going to be, it's going to be good in certain matchups and probably not really good in other ones at all.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good analysis. Next, we've got Choking Restraints, pacifism type effect. Enchanted creature can't attack or block, as opposed to the 2 that pacifism would cost you. This does cost you 3. But with that, you also get the ability to pay 5, sacrifice Choking Restraints to exile the enchanted creature.
And this is where it's kind of better of a card. This card wouldn't be that good in other formats where they're not really caring about specific stuff in the graveyard like Delirium is, but most decks can get like 3 out of the 4 Delirium requirements done, and it's that last one trying to get like a land or a planeswalker or an enchantment in the graveyard. So now like auras and enchantments, they're going to just be so much easier to get into that graveyard, and now you're going to be able to get rid of something that has other helpful effects like just being present on the battlefield or activated abilities, triggered abilities. You'll play this. It's not that bad.
Yeah, I agree. It costs more than pacifism, but it's still removal, and in limited, you always want removal. Exactly. Next, we've got another rare, Collective Effort. Costs 3, and you can destroy a target creature with power 4 or greater, destroy an enchantment, or put a 1/1 counter on each creature target player controls. And that comes with an Escalate, so if you'd like, you can choose all 3. What I like best about this card is that the Escalate doesn't require mana. It allows you to just tap one of your creatures to escalate. So I think that's a lot more reasonable to pay, and I think it's going to be very easy to escalate and choose all 3 options if you want.
Right, yeah, this is another one of those just below out escalate cards that have, if you play for just one effect, it's good, and it's easy to get the other effects. With this one though, this is similar to the red cards where like creatures with flying or without flying can't block, and it allows you to just like push through that last damage when you have like a mucked up board state. This again is one of those it just wins you the game if you have like any kind of board presence. However, it is the worst top deck in a situation where you're behind, so it doesn't get you back from behind, but it's probably more of a constructed playable card than in limited, I would think.
Yeah, I would agree. That's true. It doesn't get you back from behind, which can be an issue, but if you're already ahead or you're equal on the board, that's a very, very good card. One last thing I'll note on this one is that you can put those counters on each creature target player controls. So if you so choose, you can put them on another player if you want to. If you're playing Commander and you want to help one of your buddies out, that is an option for you. And in conjunction with that, when you cast a collective effort or any spell with Escalate, the way the abilities resolve is they go from top to bottom. So you'll have to destroy target creature with power 4 or greater before you put counters on things, so you can't put counters on your opponent's creature to get it power 4 or greater to try to destroy it. That will not work. Next card we've got Courageous Outrider, 4 for a 3/4. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a human card from among them and put it into your hand, and the rest of those cards go on the bottom of your deck.
Pretty meh card. In limited, I don't see him being great or anything. It has a decent body. It's 3 power for 4, so we're pretty close on curve here for white, especially. Minor upside here.
Yeah, it's I like the stats for white. If you were in another color, say green, 3/4 for 4 wouldn't be what you're looking for. But I think in this case, where it replaces itself in your hands, I think that's pretty decent. That you're gaining a little bit of card advantage from playing this guy. He's a decent body, not great, but you'll definitely want to play him if you get one. Next, we've got the Dongriff, a 3-mana 2/2 flyer. Your classic Windrake in white, which is actually a functional reprint of Battle for Zendikar's Shadow Glider. Personally, I've never been a fan of the 2/2 for 3, I just don't think it does enough. The flying is great to have that little bit of evasion. This gains value if you have some auras to pump it up or some equipment to slap on this. But as is, face value, I'm not amazed.
Exact opposite opinion. These kind of cards are just great. They get in damage. If you got 2 attacks in with this, that's not unlikely, and that's it's carrying its weight for you to help win. Draft these pretty often. Having like 3 of these in your deck, that's pretty strong.
Yep, and I'll take this point to mention that obviously we are 2 different people. We have different opinions on cards, so sometimes we disagree, and we want to know when you guys disagree with anything that we're saying. If you like a card that we don't, or hate a card that we do like, definitely let us know, comment, let me know on Facebook or Twitter, because we want to hear what you guys think as well. And the more people getting together sharing information, the better that we're all going to be. Our next card, Deploy the Gatewatch. Look at the top 7 cards of your library. Put up the 2 Planeswalker cards from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your deck in a random order. And this costs 6. Now my issue with this is you're definitely not going to want it in any limited format, sealed or draft. It's just not going to work for you. It is possible to get some value out of this in standard.
Standard Super Friends is being pushed at this point.
Which is definitely a fun deck. Load up on the Oaths, load up on Planeswalker, and putting a couple Deploy the Gatewatches at the top of your curve. I know this card costs 6 to cast, which it can be a lot. But when you consider you've got Chandra, who I believe costs 6, Gideon costs 4,
Sorin.
So you can definitely get your value back out of this. And they do go onto the battlefields, so you don't have to cast them. So you're definitely getting your value back if you hit 2 Planeswalkers. If you hit just 1, it's not amazing, but you still get a Planeswalker, so things could be worse.
Top 7, you're looking at, you're probably going to have like 50 cards left in your deck at the point that you play this, probably less, and the odds are that you're probably, you're going to skew your deck so that more times than not you're going to get 2 Planeswalkers. So I like these kind of cards, even though that, WotC's like pushing a particular archetype. It's good because now like an entire deck can be built around this. It's not a card that's made to then go into a deck that's already good to make a already good deck better. Mm-hmm. So I think this would be a good way to it's good. It can get you back from behind. It can push you far ahead. It lets you play with Planeswalkers, and that's fun.
Yep, just not in sealed or draft. Don't do it there. Our next card, Desperate Sentry. When it dies, you get a 3/2 colorless Eldrazi Horror token onto the battlefield, and he also gives himself an extra 3 attack if you have Delirium. So this guy costs 3 for a 1/2 in addition to those abilities, which is not an amazing rate. If you can reliably get Delirium on, then you're talking about a 4/2 for 3, which is really good. And either way, when he dies, you get that token. So I like this guy a lot, actually. Even if you only end up chumping with him, you'll get a 3/2 token. And that 3/2 token alone, I would say, is worth paying 3 for. A 3/2 creature for 3 is reasonable. You get the 1/2 to either chump block and save you some damage, or you get a 4/2 with the Delirium. So I think there's a lot of value here.
Yeah, so again, WotC is doing really well with flavor here. It's just an oozing card here. Being desperate and, having, pitching all your efforts, all your instants and the sorceries, getting your Delirium up, and that's how you enable a Delirium. It makes a lot of sense, and how, when it dies, it becomes the Eldrazi. These kind of cards are all-stars in their limited formats. They're not going to be good at constructed, but like in the limited format, this common is just going to be like an all-star. You're going to make your deck around this, and it's going to take down rares.
Absolutely. I'll definitely be looking for a few of these in my sealed pool. Next we have Drogskull Shieldmate. 3 for a 2/3. He does have Flash, which is pretty sweet. And when he enters the battlefield, other creatures you control get +0/+1 until end of turn. What do you think?
At first I thought this was just one other creature, but yeah, all other creatures, again, really, it's a defensive card, obviously, and, you know, it'd be better if you have more spirits in your deck, but it's good for any kind of deck that, like, this is going to go on, like, you know, a blue-white tempo deck, or, you know, just like a plain white deck that is going to be slower, maybe playing something crazy like that, deploy the Gatewash that we told you not to play in limited.
Yeah.
There's a lot of flash in this format, and there's a lot of combat tricks that blow you out, and they're all like commons and uncommons. So you know, look out for these whenever you're attacking into open mana.
What I like about this card is that apart from being a spirit, and spirit tribal is going to be pretty big, or at least I'm predicting it looks pretty awesome in my opinion. I like that this is pretty much 2 combat tricks in one. You get the flash body, so there's a kind of a pseudo combat trick there, and you also get to pump all your creatures' toughness. So you kind of get that 2 combat tricks in one card. The only thing I will point out on this is that it's other creatures you control, so he does not pump his own toughness. So keep that in mind when you're casting him. Our next card, a little out of order. Let's see if I can find. There we go. Let's do Extricator of Sin first before his backside. So Extricator of Sin, when he enters the battlefield, you can sacrifice another permanent. If you do, you get that 3/2 colorless Eldrazi Horror creature token onto the battlefield, and he flips if you have Delirium. So again, he's another creature that he's not great on his own. 3 for no attack, 3 toughness. But I think what's really key here is that you can sacrifice another permanent when he comes in, which is going to help you get that last card that you need for Delirium, whether that ends up being an artifact, an enchantment, a planeswalker, a land. Those are usually the toughest to get in the graveyard for Delirium. So this guy is going to help you get that last card. And in addition to paying that and sacrificing, you get the colorless token for your trouble, so that's a pretty nice upside. And again, just paying 3 mana, you do have to sacrifice that permanent, but for 3 mana you get the 3/2, so I think that's a pretty good value.
Again, I love this card, great flavor, pretty much the same thing as Desperate Century. Once you know, it takes a little bit of build up, but the build up is obviously built into the format, so it's not going to be like impossible to do, and it's uncommon that, again, it's going to contend with rares, it's going to contend with big like fatties and stuff. It's going to give you a lot of value out of just one card. Like, there's all value upside here. There's no downside, and I'm gonna play this card a lot.
Yep. So let's take a look at what the Extricator of Sin flips into, which is Extricator of Flesh. He gives Eldrazi creatures you control have vigilance. You can pay 2, tap this guy, sacrifice a non-Eldrazi creature to get another one of those 3/2 Eldrazi Horror tokens onto the battlefield. And this time, when you're sacrificing something, it does have to be a creature, specifically a non-Eldrazi creature, rather than a permanent. But at this point, in order to flip him, you've already got Delirium, so you're not too particular about which permanent type you're sacrificing.
Yeah, this should be called like Extricator of Value, because you just keep going up here. I also like how how WotC's allowing us to kind of like play as the bad guys here. So you start out as like the weaker, the human person, and you get to really flip over and embrace the powers that the enemy or the antagonist have. And generally in games, the antagonist always has the cooler, better powers, and now we get to play with that.
Yep, and speaking of weaker creatures, you can take your weaker creatures. If you got some 1/1s which you're stuck playing, and you can upgrade those into 3/2s, which is pretty sweet. We've got Faith Unbroken, enchant creature you control. When it enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent control is exiled until Faith Unbroken leaves the battlefield. In addition, the creature that you enchant gets +2/+2. So you've got Journey to Nowhere type effects. In addition to the +2/+2, I think this is going to be really good. You get that pump in addition to removal. The only thing to mention when you're comparing this with Journey to Nowhere, is that Faith Unbroken is going to be a little easier to get rid of, rather than playing specifically enchantment removal. Your opponent's just going to naturally be playing creature removal, which when they kill your creature will get rid of Faith Unbroken as well, so just beware of that.
Traditionally, you don't really want to play these cards. It's a 2-for-1. However, you can definitely, with Delirium, you can definitely set yourself up to give your opponent like a choice of. It's gonna kind of make it bad for your opponent to even get rid of your creature that you've enchanted, since it might be your fourth Delirium piece. So these are generally bad, but they're a little better this time around.
Sure. Next we've got the Faithbearer Paladin, 3/4 for lifelink for 5. I'm not crazy on that 5 mana cost. 3/4 is a little bit small for that, but the lifelink is a decent upside. Yeah, I'm not crazy on this card overall. It is common, so you'll probably end up with 1 or 2 in your sealed pool, and you'll likely play 1. You won't be thrilled about it, but it's a card, it's a creature, gains you some life, so I imagine you'll play 1.
I'm not playing it.
You're not playing it?
No.
You hate it that much?
It's just not good enough.
Yeah, it's not great, but it's probably.
I'd rather this be like a 2/5 for 5.
Sure.
With lifelink, that would be much better.
Sure. I could see it being the very last card you add to the deck, just because you need 1 more creature. Not amazing, but eh. Next we have Fiend Binder, creature, 4 mana for a 3/2. When it attacks, tap target creature defending player controls. Now this is a common that I do expect to play quite often, and possibly in multiples if I have them. I like this in an aggressive deck where you can tap down their biggest defender or something with Death Touch maybe that you don't want to get into combat with, and it helps get your whole team through, which in an aggressive white deck, maybe a white-red, if you want to get really aggressive, this guy can make a difference.
This is where evaluating a card comes into play. This is a worse Master Distraction from like M11 or something. I don't like this card because the effect you want on like a 3 mana or 2 mana card, because you're not going to get this effect until turn 5. They're going to probably remove 1 of your creatures or whatnot by this point. It's not that strong itself anyway, so it's most likely going to be what is going to be blocked and killed. This is not a good card. I would not play this card. It's just not. It's too slow. It's kind of a trap. It sounds good, but it's just not going to work out for you.
Alright, fair enough. Like I said before, we disagreed on some cards, and that's fine. I'm sure you guys watching this video disagree with us on plenty of cards. And like I said, we definitely want to hear about it, so make sure you comment, hit us up on Twitter or Facebook, because we want to hear from you and what you think. Next we have Geist of the Lonely Vigil, 2 power for a 2/3 defender flying. It can attack as though it did not have defender if you have Delirium. What do you think?
This is going to have to go into like a slow deck, obviously. It's going to help stem any early aggression. And I feel like it just might be a little underwhelming once we start playing drafts and we figure it out.
I agree. I'm a little underwhelmed here that you have to work to get rid of the defender. The only upside I think I see on this is that it does favorably block Spiro tokens, which are a thing. So you can kind of stick this guy down there, as well as a lot of the just regular flying spirit creatures. He does block those fairly well with the 3 toughness. Not amazing, but in the right matchup he can be very good. So consider running this out of your sideboard unless you are very efficient at enabling Delirium.
Exactly.
Next we've got one of my favorite cards in the set, Gisela the Broken Blade. I think she is awesome, obviously deserving of her mythic rare status. 4 mana for 4/3, flying, first strike, and lifelink. So she's practically a mini Baneslayer Angel. No protection from anything, but those stats and the combat abilities that she has are really good, and she's going to be great in every format that you play her. limited draft sealed. If you get her a couple copies, play that in standard, because I think she is that good.
I like how Wizards is kind of, giving us a nod to possibly how broken this card might be, just by its name.
That's good. That's a good point.
We all know how broken Baneslayer Angel was, and just, in like a USA control deck, that card was just ridiculous. It was like one of like 5 creatures that just won the game for you. Possibly this is going to come around and do the same thing, even quicker. So, yeah, slam this if you get it, pick one, or if you're getting your sealed pool. But do try to protect it, actually. Players maybe on turn 5 so they can try to, use up their removal earlier on something less useful.
Sure, that's a good idea. The only downside here is that it is a legendary creature, but I think despite that fact, I think I would still play forward in a standard deck. I think she's that good. And the 3 toughness, I'm sure you're going to get a couple copies burned out, or just generally removed. So I think you could play 4 copies of this in standard. The next card we've got Give No Ground. Target creature gets +2/+6 until end of turn, and can block any number of creatures this turn. What do you think about this combat trick?
Again, so white seems to get all these combat tricks. Usually green gets these things with like Innistrad last time, like Spidery Grasp, a green card, untapping a creature, giving it +2/+4 and flying. So this is like a nod to that. That was 3 mana, this is 4. Again, don't be wary of attacking into open white mana in creatures, because they seem to have a lot of tricks going on here.
Yes, and this is a really good one. The only other thing I will point out, I'm sure this was intentional. Throughout Innistrad, we've had a theme of the number 13 popping up everywhere, most notably on the card Triskaidekaphobia, fear of the number 13. And I'll just point out that +2/+6, 26, 13 times 2 is 26. I'm sure that was a little intentional nod that they did to that. And they actually make that same reference again on another card that we'll get to in a few minutes. Next we've got Guardian of Pilgrims, 2/2 for 2. When it enters the battlefield, target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. I think that's a pretty simple, straightforward card. It's a bear, as they refer to a 2/2 for 2 in Magic. It gives another creature a little boost when it comes in. I think a 2/2 for 2 is generally playable, and this guy comes with a little bit of upside.
Yeah, this was a playable card with Nissa's Pilgrim, or Yeva's Pilgrim.
Yep.
3 mana, 2/2, gives another creature +2/+2. This one comes out a little bit earlier. Any ability that allows you to kind of break the color pie, like your flyers, like that Windrake we were just talking about. These kind of effects are really good. It being Spirit is a relevant card type. I don't know if this would go into like a constructed Spirit deck, but maybe like a casual Spirit deck where you're not trying to have a bunch of rares and make it not fun sometimes.
Sure. So yeah, definitely a playable card here. Next, we've got Iron Rites Cleansing. This costs 3 to exile target artifact or enchantment. A little costly. It's a sorcery that I'm not a huge fan of. The upside here is that you can exile rather than destroy, so this is going to keep that artifact or enchantment out of your opponent's graveyard and potentially keep them from hitting Delirium.
Yeah, so they had a Revoke Existence a while back, and like Scars, it wasn't played. This format, I feel like it might, because we're a lot more, more enchantment and artifact oriented, especially with like Chandra's Plane coming up, with speculations of being more artifact oriented.
That's a good point.
I don't. This is gonna be some sideboard tech. You might use it. You'll probably get it if in your draft without even trying. Don't forget that you have it if your opponent does have some really good enchantments that blow you out.
Sure, yeah, definitely, maybe not in the main deck, but definitely keep this in your sideboard, because I imagine there's going to be a matchup or two where you're going to want it. At this point, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back and do the rest of White, but I'd like to mention that we are going to be posting this on our website as well as the YouTube page. So make sure you head over to casualcrusader.com. You can check out different articles we do. We're going to take a couple of these cards, particularly the rares and mythics that we're most excited about, and delving into those a little bit more than what we've given you in the video. So make sure you head over to the website and check that out. Get in touch on Facebook and Twitter. We're on both of those, and I'll link to them in the description to this video. One last thing I'll point out is that if you head over to the website, on the right hand side there is a button to donate. We do this for the love of the game and to share that love with you guys. If you appreciate what we do and want to help us out, you can hit that donate button. Send us any pocket change you got. Anything is appreciated, and it's all going to go right back into maintaining the site and making sure you guys have the best quality experience you can with us. Thanks. We'll be right back.